Hello, friends, neighbors. John, your whiskey neighbor here. Welcome out to the deck. It is Sunday, so it should be samples. These are not samples. They are gorgeous small bottles. But I wanted to talk more Canadian as we are in Canada Day weekend. Yes, that's tomorrow on Monday. I hope I can record something for you guys then. But even if I don't, this is some excellent Canadian whiskey to consider. First, here I'm going to talk about Bridgeland Distillery. This is their Tabor corn, and then they spell it funky because you can't call it a bourbon. So it's a Tabor corn spirit, but it is too young in Canada to be called whiskey. And then they have this release, a special artisan release. This is Tabor corn whiskey, so it's at least 3 years old. These both have the same mash bill. We'll talk about that when I return. If you have anything from Bridgeland, why don't you pour that? If not, why don't you have any of the Canadian corn whiskey or corn spirits? That's close to a bourbon, but it can't be bourbon because that's the US, and good for them. But this is some excellent and interesting corn whiskey. Pour it. Come on back.
3, 4.
Well, thanks for coming back. A little too much information for an opener. Usually I just kind of show the bottle and say, let's get into it. But this is Bridgeland Distillery. Do not know how this will work on the shot. But this is what they call Tabor corn. And it is spelled funky, but it would be, if you just read the label, you'd say bourbon. But it is a mash spirit because it's less than 3 years old. So in Canada, we can't call it a whiskey. It is 60% corn, 32% barley, and 8% wheat, all local grains around southern Alberta area. What's interesting is both of these bottles are natural color. Are they non-chill fill? I should look that up. They've been aged the same way, but this is older, and this one actually has a little more kick at 55%. This is 45%. But let's see what this Tabor corn spirit is like. Nose and taste. It's sweet. It is buttery, but now it's in a good way. I gave that as a negative note in a whiskey I tried recently, but this is now a nice, interesting corn whiskey. Corn spirit. It's not a whiskey. This is young. Let's give it a taste and see if I can't pull a little more out of it. Cheers. So for me in that palate, there's quite an interplay between corn sweetness and actually barley. Like it's 32% barley, and for me that gives it a softness, a richer, a depth, a little nuttiness. You've heard me say that before about barley. It's something that I tend to pick up. For wheat, I'm not sure what the wheat interplay is on this. Maybe another little sip will help me get there. Cheers. This is an excellent spirit. It is a little bit spicy now, a little bit more oak coming through. Surprising how balanced it is for such a young spirit. I know it's aged in New American oak. I know they're very careful in the way they put their spirit together. They do lauter ton mashing, so they're kind of, easiest way to say it is like they're rinsing their mash in essence. So when you're fermenting, you don't have all the husk and the other stuff. You get a very clean, sweet wort. This is very, very nice and surprising how easy in the palate. Yeah, there's some nice spice and a bit of oak, but how gentle this is going through 45%, considering it's young. I have criticized whiskeys earlier at coming out of 3 years, and they just taste 3 years. This tastes like a nice bourbon. It's not a bourbon, but I'm going to call it a corn whiskey. Wait, it's not a whiskey, so I guess I got to call it a corn spirit, which seems to do it a disservice. This is a classy product, beautiful bottle, and it's quite tasty. I was going to go for a fourth sip, but maybe I'll do that while I'm editing. As I move over to, in essence, the same product, but now it is fully aged, so it can be called a whiskey, and now it just says Tabor corn whiskey instead of some weird spelling of bourbon. This is the same mash bill, the same process, but it is older, and it is, I guess I should show, it's a gorgeous bottle. This red label in their Artesian series is outstanding, I think. I really think this is, like, what a nice bottle. They're both beautiful, but there's something about that red on that label that just looks fantastic. The whiskey itself here is darker. It absolutely has more color. It's not just the appearance of the label. It is dark and rich. So even though it's still pretty young, it's really picked up a lot of color from, I think they use a number 3 char. Shoot, I can't remember. But it is, new charred oak. It's an interesting combination. It's darker. This is sweeter. I'm getting a little bit of cinnamons off that coming back to it, which I'm not getting up front on this one. Maybe a little dark cherry, just a little bit, not much. It's quite a bit stronger in the nose. The alcohol is really coming out here. Let's try a sip and maybe get my palate into it. Cheers. First thoughts is it is much more full on the palate, richer, a little bit impression of oiliness, chewiness. It's not chewy, but it coats so much more. This is good, but this is very light, and I was struggling for different tasting notes. This, I've got some anise, almost. No, maybe not black licorice. So a little bit of nutmeg, a little bit of clove. Like, it's got a little bit of a broader spice palette. Better try another sip. Cheers. In that sip, that barley came back into play. Another place that uses a fair amount of barley with their corn is Okanagan. I think Okanagan Spirits, they put a lot of barley in their products, and I really taste it there. Here, it's definitely in the secondary conversation. A lot of that grainy but creamy, nutty barley note, and then you get young barley for me. It's harder to taste young corn. Corn seems to be corn, but age really plays around with barley for me. So this is really good. It's bolder, it's spicier, it hugs. You might even want to take a couple of drops of water and get it to just the right place for you. But with that coating nature and still that sweetness of corn, that nice light, sweet whiskey is there. Nothing artificial. What really marks these as great quality releases for me is the way they hold together, and also the way they don't push me into something that I'm really not interested in. Artificial cola, artificial sweetener, mechanical water. I'm trying to think of all the things that every now and then a whiskey kind of throws my way, and I'm like, oh, that took me out of the moment. These are both just really good, very good looking bottles. And a couple of local guys, when I had them on the channel, it was so much fun to hear their process and what they were interested in doing next. But they're certainly and currently putting out some great quality whiskey, which would be fantastic for Canada Day. I know you can get these all over Alberta. I don't know where else you can in the country, but these are fantastic Canadian whiskeys, Canadian corn whiskey or spirit, but either one would be fun to have on the deck. Thanks for joining me here this Sunday. Hope you guys have a fantastic Canada Day weekend, and specifically a great day tomorrow with friends and family, or yourself. Go out and see some fireworks, or not if you have a lot of really cool furry animals at home. I hope you keep them safe and happy. Have a good weekend. Cheers.